Well, hello folks, and welcome back to the Frontier Western Heritage channel. I'm Todd Kestner, outside of Bozeman, Montana, here at the gun range, and preparing for a big outdoor day. And so there's a lot of racket out here, a public day tomorrow and the next day. Plus the state police happen to be practicing this evening as well. So we got a lot of noise going on. So we're going to try to get through this. We have a decent evening to be able to do this, and not in the cold, and finally in some decent weather. So I'm going to continue this series on the pocket pistols and the strength of the pocket pistols and how effective they would be as a self-protection arm back in the Old West period. So today we're going to take a look at the 1849 Colt pocket revolver, and this one actually came out, this model actually came out in 1850, came out at the same time as the 1851 Navy, and since the two had come out really in the same year in 1850, collectors have since labeled them two different things to try to separate them a little bit. So the 1849 pocket and the 1851 Navy, both of them coming out in 1850. We talked earlier in some of the other videos about how really popular a pocket pistol was for the average folks. You know, we think of the Old West, we think of the gunslingers and the six-shot revolvers and the big bore stuff. And in reality, most folks who were going to carry a gun for self-protection, just your average citizen, would have a pocket pistol. And as an indicator of that, this gun came out in 1850. It was made all the way through 1872. And they made 325,000 of these pocket pistols of this particular variety, this model, several variations, but of this model, in that span. And as a comparison, they made 215,000 1851 Navies. And that's remarkable when you think of how many 1851 Navy Colts would have been in the Civil War. So even with a war, there was still 110,000 more of these pocket models made. Another comparison, about 200,000 1860 Armies were produced before they went off the market. And again, during the Civil War, where it was an Army arm, and yet this particular gun, 325,000 copies were made. So very, very popular, very popular gun. Another 11,000 made in London. So a super popular gun that replaced the 1848 Baby Dragoon. And so that was one of the early pocket pistols. Well, Patterson was really, there's a Baby Patterson too, but then the Dragoons came out, and the big Dragoons, and the Baby Dragoon was a 31 caliber, just like this one, that this actual model replaced. The Baby Dragoon, not until the end of the serial number run did they have a loading lever. The 49 pocket came out with a loading lever pretty much right off the bat, and there were some produced without it, but most of them had a little loading lever. So a very popular gun. We're going to test it and just kind of see what we get for our velocity, and also see what kind of accuracy we can get downrange as well. So I've got two projectiles. I'm going to use a 50 caliber round ball, 31 caliber. It's a 320 to put in the percussion gun, and also a conical bullet that's 80 grains. So we'll try both of those, see how the pocket pistol holds up, see what kind of energy we get from this, and compare it to the Smith and Wesson that we compared, or that we measured last time. So it'll be kind of fun to see. And folks will probably ask, why would anybody want to carry the 49 pocket in the same era? A little bit later, but when the Model 1.5 single action Smith and Wesson came out, that was a cartridge gun. Why would you still want to have a 49 pocket? Why would you compare the two? And basically, just because a new gun came out didn't mean everybody went out and bought it. There was not nearly the number of folks out there with the discretionary income to just be able to go out and buy the latest model off the shelf all the time. So a lot of folks would have carried a percussion pocket pistol well into the cartridge era, even when something different like the Smith and Wesson 1.5 single action was available. So again, about a 32 caliber like that Smith and Wesson, 31 officially with this 49 pocket. We'll load her up and take a look, see what we get for some velocities, figure out the energy, and compare it to that 32 caliber Smith and Wesson. So I'm going to pop this apart, and as I'm working toward loading this gun, I'm going to take some gun grease, and the Colt instructions said that you're supposed to have this cylinder arbor filled with grease. And a lot of us say that. We recognize that that was part of the Colt idea, and then we skip over it and we don't do it. And that's usually been the way I've done it as well, and just figured, well, that was kind of a neat thing, but what a mess. And so I'm using Montana Extreme gun grease on this. Decided to do it historically correct and put this on there. And the reason I'm using this gun grease instead of some of the bullet lube is because this gun grease isn't going to get hot and just melt and go right out of the gun immediately. So it's going to stay greased through several cylinders. And the reason I've gotten on to doing this is not just historically correct, it is, but also because if I do this properly, get this all lined back up here, I found that I've been able to get a lot more shots out of this gun, or out of any of these cap and ball guns, when I actually do what Sam Colt said, and that was grease that cylinder arbor. And the fouling doesn't seem to affect the spin of the cylinder nearly like it would. I think I shot the 1860 Army when I greased the cylinder 5 cylinders full. I could have shot it all day long. I could have shot another 5-10 cylinders full and never had this problem. So if you've got a gun grease and you think you're wasting your time by filling up that arbor, don't feel that way, because go ahead and do it. It's not much more to clean up, and boy does it ever make your gun shoot better. So sticking with 3F Old Ainsford, and I'm able to get 18 grains in here, trying to fill this chamber up. So I've got as much of a potent round as I can, and also trying to get that sprue of the 320 ball straight up. And I know you guys have probably watched loading a cap and ball revolver a million times, so I haven't gone through every one of the steps. This particular gun is a Colt third series 1849 pocket, so it's a 3rd generation Colt. A lot of folks will call these kind of a hopped up U-birdie. They're a U-birdie that's just fancier because they weren't really a real Colt. They were made with Italian parts, and to most respects that's true. However, maybe you can't necessarily call it a true Colt because it's got all those U-birdie parts, but boy did they ever do a nice job with these things. So these 3rd generation signature series, they call them, because they have Sam Colt signature down the back strap. Case hardening is absolutely gorgeous. The bluing is much deeper than your average reproduction, and I have found this 3rd generation, I've shot several of them, to really be a pretty good gun. It's better looking than your average reproduction, and shoots just as well. So anyway, 31 caliber 1849 pocket. I'm going to put a little bit of bullet lube over the front of these chambers. We'll put some caps on it and get our first 5 rounds off. All right, let's try this 50 grain 320 round ball. I'm predicting a little bit of variability here because as I was trying to load this 18 grains, it kind of depended on how hard the wind was blowing and what was coming out of my little powder measure and into the chamber. I tried to keep it as close as possible, but we'll see what happens here. That one gave us an error. Well, I'm loading up a couple extra chambers here. I Here we go, get the 18 grains, and again it's 3F Old Ainsford. With the round ball, because I had my chronograph, I think all the problem was I had it a little too close, and it was getting a lot of black powder blast, and when that happened it would give me an error instead of a velocity. So I'm gonna wrap off 2 more rounds here, so we've got a 5-round average instead of a 3-round average, since we had errors on 2 of these. Wow, that one was flying. I'm going to put 15 grains down here with these conicals. This is the 80 grain conical. And again, it's a 320 and the caliber is 31, so we'll have plenty of lead to shave off. I had to drop the powder charge from 18 to 15, or I wasn't going to get this longer, this conical bullet in here. Of course, it's longer, so it takes up more room in the chamber, and so there's not as much room for the powder. It is kind of a neat bullet, though. It's got a heeled bottom, so it'll drop right down into that chamber for you, rotate perfectly underneath the rammer, and it's not the easiest thing to ram in, but it sure does fit nice. Yeah, absolutely perfect. So I'll load up the next couple here, get this gun fully loaded. I'm going to go ahead and lube over the chamber mouths. I did pan lube these bullets, but there really isn't a grease groove on them, so they don't hold much, and you shave it all off when you shove them down into that chamber and shave off that ring of lead. That ring of lead's important, because that's one thing is your bullet is going to not fall out through recoil, but it also ensures that the whole chamber is sealed, and so that no spark can get past the bullet into the powder charge on the one next to it. But I'm going to lube these because they're not lubed as well as I would like, since there's no lube groove in them, and then we'll be ready to shoot. All right, I got powder shot, got the end of the chambers lubed and caps on, and we're cocked and ready to roll. The mass is bigger because we've got an 80 grain conical bullet versus a 50 grain round ball. So we'll see if it makes any difference in the energy. All right, well, we got 4 of them to register with these conicals. One of the shots showed an error again, so must have blown a lot of smoke and debris across that chronograph. But we've got pretty consistent velocities with this conical bullet. One thing is, I'm guessing that my steel target's probably, I'd say 30 to 35 feet down range, and having a hard time hitting that 16 by 16 plate at this distance. Now, this gun wasn't made for gunfights in the street. This was made for close-up protection, card table distances, things like that, being attacked at close range and trying to protect yourself. So I wasn't expecting to do anything great down range, but thought I'd hit the plate more often than I did. So we'll take a look at the velocities and convert into some energy here and see how this 49 pocket compares to that 32 Smith and Wesson. And again, the 32 Smith and Wesson came out about 6 years after this was out of production, so 1878. And this went out of production. This 49 pocket would have gone out of production in 1872. But again, if you were used to it, you had it tuned up, you were comfortable with it, you didn't have the money to go buy the next gun, this would be still what you're carrying well into the cartridge era, and definitely a very potent little gun. Was throwing some velocities that almost every one of them exceeded that 32 Smith and Wesson. So working with the data here, we've got 5 velocity measurements, and yeah, it is a little suspect here that we've got 2 pairs that are identical, but stranger things have happened, and this is the data we got, so it's pretty good average. Let's just go with it. And if you take those, add them up, divide by 5, we get an average velocity of 728.9 feet per second. And if we put that into our foot-pounds formula here, and that is the mass times the velocity squared divided by our constant, which is 14,000, which is 2 pounds in grains, times the acceleration of gravity, that puts us in a formula that will tell us how many foot-pounds that we're going to have. So we've got a 50 grain round ball with that average of 728.9 feet per second squared divided by 450,240. So we put that into our formula, and we end up with a foot-pound energy for this 50 grain round ball in the 1849 pocket of 59 foot-pounds. So that's where we're at with the 49 pocket, with about 18 grains of triple F powder and a 50 grain round ball. So if we take a look at our conicals now, let's see how that compares. So for our conical bullet, that 80 grain conical, we had one error and didn't reload and reshoot that, but the rest are relatively consistent. So we're going to take the average of 4 out of there and see what our feet per second average is, which is 714.9 feet per second. So not a whole lot slower than the round ball, and so that's pretty comparative velocity wise with a bigger mass. So we're going to see what that does. We throw that 80 grain conical into our formula for foot-pounds. We square the average velocity of 714.9, divide by our constant once again, and now we've got a foot-pound energy of 90.8 with that 80 grain conical. So you can see the mass of that conical, which was 30 grains larger than the round ball as far as mass goes, did end up making quite a difference. And so in this particularly sense, our velocity was nearly the same. So let's take a look at what we did in the last video with our Smith and Wesson, and let's compare our findings with this experiment to that Smith and Wesson 32 caliber. So with our 49 pocket and a 50 grain round ball, 59 foot-pounds of energy, our 80 grain conical, we're at 90.8 foot-pounds of energy. And looking back to our last experiment, or our last video with the 32 Smith and Wesson, we've got 63.4. So looking at these two different guns, you were definitely not in any disadvantage by sticking with the 49 pocket, because the energy with the round ball is about the same as if you had gone out when the Smith and Wesson 1.5 double single action came out and bought one of those. So you've pretty much got about the same energy between that Smith and Wesson and the 49 pocket. But when you take the 49 pocket and load it with conicals, then you end up with a foot-pound energy, which is half again more than your 32 Smith and Wesson and your 50 grain round ball. So actually a little bit of an advantage energy-wise if you were sticking with your 49 pocket, had it slicked up, felt comfortable with it. You certainly weren't giving up any power with that 80 grain conical. So that's where this stacks up, and soon we'll take a look at a few more and compare those as well. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up button, and if you want to share with your friends, anyone else that may be interested in the Old West shooting, please hit subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. if you've got a comment or didn't like the video, love to hear from you there as well, and see what it is we could do better next time. So we'll be moving to the 38s and the 36 pocket pistols here shortly, and continue this series. Appreciate you coming, and we'll see you next time here in the Frontier Western Heritage channel. What's that? You have to turn it on and off again, get that error message off of there. Move the, no, you're twisting the base the wrong way. You're going this way, I gotta go this way.
What?
You're twisting the base the wrong way, the back end's gotta go this way.
This end needs to go that way.
Yeah. Okay, that's too far, but once you let go of it, it goes about right. Okay. Well, since it took me 40 years to get that charge to come down, I think I'll talk the next time. You gotta go like that. No, that's the wrong direction. You gotta go like this. Bring your front end this way and your back end that way.